Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Today we will continue with our discussion on attitude. And if you recall, in the last session, at the last time that we were going to finish our lecture, we had been discussing two basic models. One was related to the behavior, where I was discussing a case study, a research study which had been undertaken regarding online inclination of online buying behavior of various people. This study, as I was discussing, brought out a fact that certain components of individuals have an impact on attitude towards a particular object. And in this situation, the object was online shopping. And it came about that there was demographic issues, whereby we had suggested that the younger people are more accustomed to, or more inclined to, or more favorably inclined towards online shopping as against those people who are in their 60s or in their 50s, who are not so technically savvy. Now, the second area that we had discussed in that model was related to purchase preference, which means if I have some kind of a relationship with the concept that I want to buy, then in my opinion, it will be more sensible to go online to buy that product. For example, we had discussed, for example, buying some kind of tourist location. And in that tourist location concept, we have suggested that rather than going and visiting places, we can just go online and get a good feedback from the internet of the various locations that one can visit. The third that we had been discussing was the benefit perception, which means if the person feels that it will benefit him by shopping online, which is obvious, very simple to understand. If I was to waste my time going from one point to the other, rather than going to a single point where I can get comparisons of various products, and Amazon was a very good example in terms of buying, let's say, books. The final was the consumer lifestyle. Now, all these factors we had been discussing in terms of the concept that we were looking at is the behavior, the attitude towards behavior, and the behavior was purchase. But please remember that in our previous lecture, we were very categorical that behavior is the form by which we can assess what is an attitude. And we had suggested that attitude cannot be observed, behaviors can. So one of the reasons why we normally tend to evaluate behaviors is to help us to understand the attitude towards a particular object. Now, we had already explained certain questionnaires that we put forward in which we try and find out what will be your purchase inclination. Would you like to buy a product? Maybe down the road 1 month. Would you be able to promote this product to your friends? All talked about behavior. Now, the important model, which was the one that we were actually looking at, was the action-response model. Again, this is more integrated. Previous models were standalone systems in the sense that there was an attitude towards the object model, there is a behavioral model. Now we are looking at a model which tries to integrate 2 or 3 facts and brings it into a more cogent kind of a model. Now, the only thing that you need to remember is that in this model, what we are looking at is intentions to buy. Again, remember that we had been doing research. If I have a positive intention to buy, or if I'm inclined to buy, which means I do have an intention to buy a product, then that will reflect my future behavior. And why do marketers, and just to recapitulate, why do marketers want to understand this intention to buy or attitude is because that helps them predict or forecast how to influence these areas. Now, we have to understand that intention to buy is a mediating variable. Now, we have discussed that in the research time when we were discussing certain concepts of research. A mediating variable is the one through which action takes place. It falls between 2 distinct variables. One is the independent variable and the other is the dependent variable, which means a particular thing has to happen and has to pass through certain conditions before the effect can take place. So in this model, we have two aspects. One is the outcome, which is the behavior and action, and the other are the factors which will influence this buying behavior. But this buying behavior influence will go through first intention to buy, which means that the minute these factors are in position, and if they are all positive, they will create an intention which can then reflect in the buying behavior which will take place at a point of time. Now, the most important thing about this model is that it constitutes two frames. One is the attitude towards the object. We have discussed that quite extensively in the previous. But what we have not discussed is that this factor can also be influenced by our external environment. Now, what is basically the external environment? In this model, the external environment is the impact of the people who would be observing your behavior, and it is your feeling or assumption as to how they will feel about your action. Therefore, we call this aspect the subjective aspect. Now, in the objective aspect, which is the object, the attitude towards the object model, we have obviously two factors. And if you look at the model, which we had shown last time also, the first factor is the outcomes that you expect out of it. Second is the feeling or the evaluation of the outcomes. For example, I buy a product, I think it will satisfy certain factors in my life, and the outcome, the evaluation of the outcome is that I will feel happy. Now, these two factors are definite. The second point is that if I buy, how the other people will see this purchase of mine, which will then obviously either improve the intent or will block my intention to buy. And I had given you an example of maybe, let's say, I want to buy a computer, and my father, I think this computer, let's say Apple or Toshiba or Sony, is going to satisfy certain of my actions. Certain of these action requirements, for example, the graphics, the speed, all these may be what I'm looking for, and the outcome would be, the outcome evaluation would be that I would be able to perform my job very well, and that will help me in showing good performance. However, the problem is, depending on my understanding whether my father is going to feel that this is very costly, maybe very high priced. On the other side, I could also look at my friends who might appreciate what I bought or may make fun of it or may criticize it at a point of time. Now, all these factors will bring about an impact on my intention to buy any one of the brands that are available. So this action response model really tries to explain to you that the attitude towards a product or a brand or an object is not just the outcome of either experience or information or knowledge or whatever the word of mouth, but it also may have a personalized or internalized evaluation systems of people around me. Therefore, not only that I'm evaluating the object objectively, but I'm also looking at the responses in a subjective manner. Now, put these two things together and we find the action response model, and that is why in many questionnaires which are actually trying to understand the attitude, we try and assess how I will feel if I take this product among my friends. Would the feeling be positive, pleasurable, happiness, and so on and so forth. This will give us an idea who are the important reference or who are the important people who tend to influence the purchase decision or the intentions to buy. This has majorly been covered in our consumer behavior lecture previously, where we were talking about social impacts and the influence of family, the influence of class. All these things are brought together, but this model specifically tries to understand who are the critical reference. That means whose opinion will matter to me. And secondly, how motivated I am to comply with their feelings. That is what is important in this. So motivation to comply becomes an important concept. Now, having discussed this, remember we had also said that there will be two further models. One is very simple, and that model relates to theory of trying to consume model. And the second one is the attitude toward the ad model. Now, basically, theory to trying to consume model is a very simple one. It actually does not look at the fact of whether you were able to buy or not buy or intention to buy. It tries to study the factor where you were not able to buy or consume even though you had a positive attitude. This is a little bit more organizational oriented concept. Why? Because at times people want to buy something but they cannot. The reason could be that maybe the person wanted to buy a product and he's gone to the shop, but it is unavailability of the product which denied him the purchase. Now, if I was to ask a person, this particular person, whether you have purchased this brand or this product in the last 1 week, and I say no, or I say the last time when you bought, which brand did you buy? And I give a brand which is not my regular brand, this would give a wrong information to the marketer. The assumption could be that the person's intention or attitude has changed. The fact is that something else was happening. Now, at this point of time, it will be much better for the company to understand what was the reason that the person had not been able to buy this brand. It could be that there were the shopkeeper or the person who was in the service center or in the company's outlet suggested that you come after 1 week and we will be having the product available, which means that there was a shortage, and maybe the shortage was because of popularity. Now, if we don't understand this, or the marketers don't understand the reasons behind this, we might have a totally wrong connotation, or wrong results could come about, and we may go into a wrong track. Now, that is why trying to consume theory behind this is relevant from understanding the reason of why a particular behavior or consumption did not take place, other than, obviously, it supplements or if it complements the idea of how to study the attitudes. Now, the last model, which is relevant in this frame, before we move on to trying to understand how attitudes come about, how attitudes are formed, and then we will go to the further one step ahead and try to see how these attitudes can be changed. And over this period of this session, we will try and complete these two aspects. Now, the attitude towards the ad model is a very critical one, and again re-emphasizes the point, which is basically the logic of consumer behavior research or consumer behavior studies, that whatever we do, we try and communicate to the consumers. And what we do is we use the media, the ads, to be able to communicate the product. It's a little different than a direct marketing or sales approach where the person approaches the consumer and sells the product. Most of the products are bought based on distant approach. That is, the manufacturer is different and the location of the products are totally different. Consumers go and buy because of certain reasons. One of the major components of this reasoning power is the media, and that is what we have been trying to explain. The important point to note in this model is that ads normally have a very strong influence of creating attitudes. Now, these attitudes could be positive or negative, and it has been established through research that if an ad creates a positive impression, the likelihood that that product will be bought becomes higher. Therefore, we constantly try and make sure that our advertisements, whether it is print media, whether it is movie media, whether it is internet, all must take care of this fact that the attitude that is created by the ad will have a direct impact on the purchase behavior or the intention to buy. which is what we are concerned with. Now, once the relationship is developed, we must also remember, as we had discussed in the low involvement and high involvement media concepts, we have to be very careful in selecting the type of media that we would like to present, the type of celebrity or the model, or whether we are going to provide information or would it be visual, all have an impact on attitudes. Now, there is a very interesting case which has come about very recently, and I don't think I'll be amiss or I'll be wrong in trying to suggest that very important case which has come about, and the impact on attitudes is now taking place. Very critical kind of a case. Recently, day before yesterday, a child lost her life because of negligence in one of the hospitals. Now, people may not have had any contact with that hospital at all, or they may not have had any experience, but this particular ad, which is emotionally created or emotionally generated, is having a very strong impact on attitudes of people towards that object, and that object is a hospital. Now, the point that I'm making here is that according to research, emotional appeal, it has been found out, is a very strong framework for creating attitudes. Now, this appeal, which is now being generated, if you visit Lahore, at least at 3 distinct points, there are billboards which are very emotionally charged and which are suggesting the impact, and it is creating an impact on people's attitude towards that object and that hospital. The idea is most of the people may not have ever visited that hospital, which otherwise also means that there is zero attitude framework. And like I told you in the last session, that normally we tend to move from no impact, no attitude towards attitudes. There is a transition which takes place, and we have already been discussing certain frameworks. Just to supplement this example, let me give you an example. For example, I do not normally listen to music, but I decide to take a long trip by car. Now, I need some kind of music to occupy my time. I've heard about MP3 player, but I do not have any attitude towards it. Since I do not have, I've heard about it, but I have no attitude. So now what I do is, with this zero attitude, I start finding out which models are available. Because I'm used to, let's say, Sony, or I've heard good word of mouth about Sony, it logically suggests to me that Sony MP3 player would be a good factor. Now, again, this is what we have always talked about in terms of generalization, which we had mentioned some time back. This is generalization of stimulus. Sony, I'm just generalizing Sony's brand name towards an MP3 player for which I had no attitude. And this new attitude is being created because of a direct relationship between my known factor about brands, Sony, and the new MP3 player that I'm looking for because of a need that has come about, and I'm trying to resolve that need. So there is a direct link up. It's the same situation with this hospital. Maybe I have to visit a hospital. Now, whenever I have to visit a hospital, this incident or episode that has occurred recently, for which a lot of information is flowing through SMSs, through media, a web page has been opened, people are visiting that web page, people are commenting on that web page, which tries to suggest that all this social impact is now creating a kind of an attitude towards the object. So media is used to generate social influence. Now, that social influence then ultimately results in either a positive or a negative attitude. Now, in this case, as we are aware, which is a very recent factor, that there is a very negative impact that has been created to the extent that the High Court has taken suo motu notice, which means Nobody has applied to them, but they have taken the case on themselves. And even the chief minister has gone and set up a committee to review this. And this is a very strong example of how attitudes can be formed through media communication, and particularly the ones that are charged appeals. They have a very strong impact. Now, after giving this example, let's go on to the actual place that we were discussing, and that is how attitudes are formed, then what are the influences on the attitudes, and finally, the relationship between personality and attitude formation. These are the major three things that we will be discussing before we move on to how to bring about change in the attitudes. Now, I was giving you an example of the MP3 player. Another example, which maybe I'll try and link up, and I gave you that example in trying to understand or explain the concept that we had discussed previously, which was generalization of stimulus. And there we had talked about brand extensions, which means that you add a new product with an old brand. In this case, I was talking about MP3 player linked with particularly, let's say, the Sony brands. Another example could be that, let's say, there is a product which is very soft on the skin. Let's say the Dove has produced this, or Olay, which is a brand of the P&G. They have produced this. And there is something, their other brand is, let's say, Secret, which is particularly the brand of Olay. And now this brand itself, try to understand this brand itself, that is the P&G brand Olay, is basically the unconditional stimulus. Now, this unconditional stimulus has already created a response, unconditional response, which is, it has got a positive attitude. Now, let's say the company tries to understand the market and wants to launch a hair conditioner. Now, if they use the Olay brand, the Olay brand, and what is their hope? Now, this Olay brand that they are, the conditioner that they are launching is basically the conditioned stimulus. Now, they are launching this under the unconditional brand stimulus, which is the Olay, and now we are launching a conditioner, which is what we would call in the historical, that the discussion that we had previously is the conditioned stimulus. And we hope that the response, conditioned response, will be that it will create the same positive intention. Now, this link between the two is one aspect where the attitudes are created, a link between an old recognized brand and a new product which is launched under the brand. So it creates attitude. The second aspect of creating attitudes is when we try to find information or personal experience. Now, an experience also creates this attitude. It could be possible that I go to a market, or maybe I'm flying to another country and I've stopped at an airport and I need a particular product, let's say for headache or for stomach problem, and I go to the pharmacy and I'm trying to locate the brand that I know, but I do not find that brand. So I ask the pharmacist and he gives me a product. Now, that brand I've not heard about, but under the condition I buy it. It helps me. It is very good on my system. Now what has happened, I've automatically generated a positive attitude towards this particular brand. And next time when I'm searching for the same problem or as a solution to the same problem, I will tend to buy this product. Now, wherever I can find, therefore, my attitude has undergone change. And this change has come about because of my experience with the product. So like I said, in the first instance, it is generalization of the stimulus, which is normally used by companies in trying to launch product extensions. On the other side, this is an experience. Now, experience is just not related to something that I suddenly had to buy. Companies sometimes undertake a very significant attempt to move towards developing this experience. For example, recently, if you have had Lipton tea bags, or you bought Lipton tea bags, you would find that marketers, having realized this concept of experience in generating attitudes, they have enclosed green tea bags in their regular tea bag packs. Now, if you wanted to go and buy a 100 tea bag container of Lipton, you most probably find 20 extra green leaf tea bags. And the intention of the marketer is what? That once you have those tea bags, without paying an extra cost, you will tend to use it. And it is their belief that by using it, you will create a positive attitude. So whenever you next time want a green tea, you will tend to go and buy their product or brand. This is what we tend to do, and marketers recognize this very extensively. And that is why we will find a number of products which are provided as samples or as extras or as attached sachets, so that we should be able to experience it particularly. This is the second frame where we tend to develop our attitude. The third basic concept is, we've already discussed it quite extensively, so I'll just mention it here, is the cognitive framework, which means I read material about it, and the more material I read, the stronger is my attitude. It has been suggested that in the concept of low involvement and high involvement products, the attitude that has been formed with the result of intensive reading, intensive knowledge gathering, intensive drawing upon the material becomes stronger than the one which is low involvement, which is basically maybe triggered because of the advertisements, peripheral approach, or maybe the imagery that has been created, or maybe the model. But between the two, the one which is called the peripheral approach, or the other which is the core or central approach, in which more material information is provided, the attitude that comes about because of knowledge, because of gathering information, because you have been able to reason out the logic behind it, is more stronger, more lasting than attitude which comes about because of some peripheral imagery that was created. Now, given these two concepts that I've been talking about, let's see the practical application of these two. Now, in the first case, we were suggesting generalization of stimulus, which means there is a brand and you are creating a brand extension. It has been researched, and to help develop a positioning strategy or communicating a positioning strategy, which is what the goal of all our marketing is, to finally be able to position our product. It has been suggested that if there is a fit or similarity between the brand that is existing already and the brand that is being, or the product that is being brought into position or being positioned, if there is a similarity among the two products, the attitude will be stronger in terms of positive or negative, whichever one is it. It's not important that I'm suggesting negative or positive, but if there is a positive attitude and there is a direct fit between the old existing brand and the new product that is being positioned under that brand, then the attitude will be that much stronger and will have the similarities. And there is the example that I gave you about Sony. Now, in the framework, Sony is an electric good company, and there is MP3 player being an electric good product. So if you have this fit, this will be very strong. The second thing is that the images of the existing products in the market, all the images, that is why making brand management or managing brands is of such a critical thing in the current marketing environment. So therefore, the image that is already existing for that particular product or that particular brand must be directly linked with the kind of image that we are trying to create for this new product which is being launched under the same brand. So what we are looking at is the positioning should be the kind of image that exists for the current brands or the current products under the brand, which means if they are high priced or high quality products, then this new product which has been brought into position cannot have low price. It is going to create this distortion. So if comparatively, let's say Sony DVD players or Sony television is a higher priced product than comparative products in the market, let's say from Samsung or LG or Philips, then their MP3 player should also be higher priced given this relationship. That is the basic message from this logic. The second situation where we were discussing attitude that are formed through experience, and we were suggesting that people tend to solve a problem and they collect a lot of information. They have a lot of requirement of gathering information in comparative situations. And in that situation, what we wanted to look at was how to position a product within that category of information. Now, because the requirement is to give information, information can lead you to either of the four possibilities. You could either underposition yourself from what is required by the buyer or consumer, or you can overposition yourself by stating certain attributes or certain benefits which may not be the ones that are required by the consumer. So you might have gone overpositioning it. Or like I said, you could have gone and underposition yourself against the requirement of the consumer. Third is that you have a confused positioning. A good example is, which I just mentioned you earlier, that here is a product under a brand which is very high quality, high priced, and then you launch a product or a brand which is also of a very low quality or maybe a low price, contradicting the existing situation, which may lead the marketers into a confused position area. A good example is historically in Pakistan. I've mentioned it, but let me repeat it again so that we can reinforce this concept of confused positioning regards glassware that was launched some years back, maybe about 15 years back. The point was that in the initial stages that the product had been priced or positioned as a very high-end, high-quality product only usable by the elite class. And it was also considered to be a product bought by the elite class for their dowries. For example, the girl is going to get married, or the lady is being married off, or the daughter is being married off. So the high quality people, the ad or the positioning was to tend them to buy this glassware for the purposes of dowry, which is of a very high quality and image creating thing. But subsequently, in the marketing, the mistake was made. And the mistake was made was that the product was started given at a discount in the industrial mela. Now, industrial mela, normally people go and buy where everybody buys. Even the servants of the families go and buy there because the products are considered to be cheap. So now when the product was available at a very low discount rates, and the marketers thought that the brand is now very popular among the people, they got confused that actually the product is now being bought by not the segment that they are targeted by people, but by people who just got an opportunity to buy the product at a cheap rate. Now, because they bought it at a cheap rate and they bought in bulk, there was a confusion. When the marketers of this company went to sell these brands to high-end shops, those shops refused to buy that. Why? Because the customers who used to visit them were started to reject the product, because now this product was available in the homes of their own servants, the drivers, the maids, and so on and so forth. The market therefore went confused. When the market got confused, particularly those people who they had targeted and where the product was considered to be provided for dowry kind of things, for elegant dining, and it was now available in everybody's home. So they stopped buying the product. And when the marketers of this company or salespeople of this company went to the higher end shops where normally these elite class visits and buys products from, the shopkeepers refused to buy or keep the product on their stocks, for a simple reason that the people who used to go and buy now were refusing to buy. Why? Because now this product was available in their homes of their servants, in their homes of their drivers, and so on and so forth. The idea, therefore, was that this product was not elite class. It was now a very common kind of a commodity which was available for to be bought by everybody. The confusion occurred, and the confusion did occur because of pricing. So just to make a point other than what we are discussing in terms of consumer kind of behavior and research on it, that even changing a price can have a very strong impact on the attitude of people. Without even being aware, people create attitudes, and this attitude then tends to take us into a behavior which may be the one we want or may not be the one we want. Another example of the similar kind is when a product which was already available, a watch, let's say, was available at $150. This watch was targeted at everybody. Everybody could buy it. $150 was not much. But then, through research, they found out that this watch actually was liked by people and was considered to be of a very high value. So they changed the price. They changed the price from $150, let's say, to $1,000, and the market share of this watch grew. Their sales increased by close to about 300%, which means that they were wrongly positioned. They had been under positioning themselves. So when they corrected the positioning, their sales went up. Like I'm saying, that all this was an impact on attitude. So sometimes even high price creates an impact on attitude. The kind of ad that you give in the media, that creates an attitude. And all these factors must be remembered when we talk about what influences are there that can impact the attitude. And we had been mentioning something like family. Just another example, which is very typical. The example is that if a child, when he was small, was being given chocolates or sweets as an award for something that he did well, which means कि अगर उसको इनाम के तौर पे toffees or sweets दी गई, तो बड़े होके he would have an attitude which will be positive towards these products. Now, we have already been discussing this family impact or influence. Let's move into the area of another influence which is coming very strongly, and that is known as the niche marketing. Now, marketers tend to now provide products which are very specific to a very small class of people, and they cater to their needs very effectively. For example, there are people who have a very large shoe size requirement, or people who are very tall and very large may have very specific needs for clothes, and so on and so forth. For example, there are new products which are being launched for people who are over 60-year-old, like vitamins. Even grooming products for specific ages are now in the market. And what is the marketer trying to suggest to the consumer is that they are very conscious of the needs, specific needs of individuals, and this gives a broader aura of good quality or a compassionate approach to the marketer or the brand itself. For example, L'Oreal has products for old age people, for young people. Vitamins are available by a number of foreign companies, which normally vitamins were given for everybody, but now they have started categorizing it for sports, for age over 60, for pregnant mothers, and so on and so forth. The idea that is being brought into position by the marketers are that they are concerned about people, and because of their concern, they create a positive attitude, because it's understandable, human nature, that if you understand that somebody is concerned about you or about people or about environments, you become more positively framed towards that person. Now, the impact or the influence of realism in media. We know that print media as against advertising media. Now, advertising media is more realistic because it depicts the real ground position, an environment which the marketer tries to project to the consumer. It's more, what do you call, interactive or more realistic than simple print form. Now we have gone one step forward, and internet has become a very strong interactive media where sometimes the websites are created in such a way that you become involved in it. And the more involved you become in the internet or on the web page or on the website, you become that much strongly involved and your attitude becomes more positive. This research has also been created, and there is a lot of information now that the more interactive, more realistic a website or an ad or a media is, the more strongly it will be able to influence attitude. And that is why sometimes we have virtual visits to universities. Sometimes virtual visits are given, or even videos are shown about the books, and so on and so forth. The idea is the more involved you become, the more you get engrossed in interaction, the more strong your attitude would be. Now, up till now, we had been talking about the various influence, and the one that we are left with is basically personality. I will not take much time again on it because we have already discussed the personality framework in the shape of high involvement and low involvement. At that point of time, we were talking about involvement of products. Maybe you are highly involved in purchase behavior, you are highly involved in problem solving, but then we also have personalities. There are some personalities which go and become very strongly involved in whatever they do. Even a small purchase gets them to become involved, very highly involved in it. Therefore, we have to understand that different types of personalities will have or will be influenced by different frameworks. And we've already discussed that print, written information is more critical for people who have cognitive needs. They are highly involved. They normally get to the solution to buying through the central route that we have been discussing rather than the peripheral route, which is basically what low involvement people tend to do. So personalities where a high involved personality or a low involved personality obviously will have different kind of attitudes, and the way the attitudes are going to be engrounded in their minds is also different. For example, a low involved person, his attitude is not going to be very strong or very stable. But a person who has a strong involvement, who gets involved in information gathering and information analysis, then that person is going to be more involved with his purchase, and his attitude, whatever is formed, is going to be very strong. And that is the similar to the one where we said if you have personal experience, you get involved in the product, and therefore your attitude will be that much stronger. Now, we have already discussed the influences. We need to, before we move on to the change strategies, we should recognize that where the attitude forms or formation took place, the same more or less factors tend to impact the influence or impact and influence the attitudes positively or negatively. It can happen, maybe let's say you have a positive attitude, but your experience goes wrong, you will have a negative attitude developing. In the same form, personalities, you may be at a point of time you bought the product with low involvement, but then you become highly involved in a particular product and your attitude may again change. You might have bought something, even the families might influence can take place. The interesting point here is that why do we need to look at this again? And the question is, and I'll take you to the question which is very significant, which I mentioned about the hospital incident and the child's death. Now, let's say that negative attitude has been created. The question is, what should a marketer sitting in that hospital do to bring about this change? This significant impact or significant point that I'm making is critical to our marketing. And we need to understand how these things happen. What can we do to bring about this change? Now, in theory, we have 4 different aspects by which we can manage these few things. Now, the first one is rearrange knowledge. You could have value expressive function. That means you express a particular value. You may have a utilitarian function, which might be you might add a particular utility, or it could be to use the ego defensive function. Though we understand these, but it's very difficult to put them into position in terms of practical behavior. Let's take the first, knowledge function. We understand that people like to know about things and about people before they come to a particular conclusion. This is what we have been discussing up till now, the cognitive need. Now, we discussed this also in terms of brand positioning, where we were talking about whether you position your brand above or under positioning or confused positioning or maybe totally unbelievable. So people tend to, the marketers tend to use this knowledge function by rearranging the knowledge in such a way that your point is made as against a comparative product. For example, barcodes are used. If you can recall, there are certain ads which try and show the intensity of a particular competitive brand, let's say ranged on 1 to 10. In one case, we can say that the pain is reduced to, let's say, 70%, whereas our product reduces the pain to 10 points. Rather, on a scale of 1 to 10, the competitive brand reduces it to 7, while our product reduces it or eliminates it to 10 points. Such brands and such categories are used. Even, for example, comparative ingredients are explained, that this product has, or a competitive product has these ingredients, while comparative to that brand, our product has these ingredients. This is very common. The only consideration is, which is very important, that when you are advertising your own comparative advantage against another brand, you are actually also providing advertisement to the competitor's brand. Now, this is a very significant point that you need to remember as marketers, and marketers need to remember this, that when you go into comparative advertising and when you are trying to show the ingredients that your product has against the competitors, it could be that there are some areas which, without your knowledge, might be more significant to the consumer, which may be available in the competitor's product. So it could have a dual problem, and you need to be very careful when you are trying to handle this. The second one is the value expressive function. Now, attitudes that we have normally express our value systems, our lifestyles, our behaviors. They're all reflected in the attitudes that we have. If we are knowledgeable about the lifestyles, the kind of general value systems that people have, and we assign our product similar attributes, then obviously we will be able to generate positive feelings about the brand. For example, if somebody is very adventurous, likes going out into the wilderness or climbs mountains, then any product that could be associated with this kind of activity will generate a positive attitude. If somebody has had an experience, for example, which relates to, let's say had seen or had a problem when he was in the past driving on a very rough road and his tire burst, and if I try and promote my product with this value, that this tire will not, deflate, it will have automatic protection even if it is hit by a very strong, nail or whatever, and it is sealing itself, I think I will have a particular affinity to this product, and I will most probably have a very positive attitude. That is why when we have this idea of having a positive attitude. We need to be able to understand what the value systems are so we can incorporate it in our product. Now, the third one that we have is what we call the utilitarian function. Now, utilitarian function is normally related to attitudes that are created because we find a particular utility in it. And utility is different than value. Please remember that. Utility is demonstrable, whereas value is intangible. So we cannot really look at the intangibility, but here we have something which we can actually see. For example, we can use paper to clean surfaces, or we can use tissue which we can clean our hands with or dry our hands with. Now, a utility could be added to this particular product, and that is that it is made hygienic, in the sense that it is sanitized, which means that once I use this drying paper or tissue paper, I will also be killing germs on my hand. Now, these are when you try and create a new utility within the same product, and this will help you try to create a positive attitude. What we will do now is, as discussed with you, the utilitarian function. The next one, that is eco-defensive, I'll pick it up in the next class, and then I will take it further from there on, where we will be discussing certain issues like how to associate the product or the brand with an event or people to create attitudes. And this will be another framework of bringing change in the attitudes. At this point, because of the time shortage, let's review what we have discussed. We have been discussing quite extensively the way the attitudes are created and influenced. And I've given you an example, and let me leave an idea with you to think about. And I will leave this case of the hospital. Suppose you were a marketer or you were being a consultant to this hospital. The point would be, what should you do to change the attitude of the people if it has gone negative? Now, this will be a very interesting thing, and you can think about all the things that we have discussed, including maybe creating knowledge, maybe creating experience, maybe whatever. But the idea is that if negative attitudes do occur, the most important job of a marketer is to first neutralize this negative attitude and then create the positive one. So in the next class, when we get back, we will bring some thoughts along with us, and then we will see how we can use practically what we have been discussing so far. Okay, thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.